Stories live, stories inspire, stories teach, provoke, and stay forever. And yes, every story matters. After 8 years of telling stories, it gives me great pleasure to launch Stories with an Extraordinary Man.
Today, I'm very delighted, very honored, and very humbled to bring to you a minister. He's the youngest IT minister in this country. He's a man in action. Let's talk to Minister Priyank Kharge, who is the ITBT and Tourism Minister of Karnataka, the awesome work that he is doing, and what can we expect from him for our country, for our state, and especially for the startups. Bangalore needed young blood, young ministers, and you're the youngest minister in the cabinet of ministers in Karnataka. Do you feel overwhelmed with your role?
Well, I'm grateful to the Chief Minister and the party that they thought I was good enough to fit in this role. And it is overwhelming because it's a big responsibility, especially when you're India's biggest technology cluster and one of the best ecosystems in the world for technology. So it is a bit overwhelming, and I have my tasks cut out.
Priyank, your journey, you were an entrepreneur before this and now you're a minister. Tell us about your journey, because many young people would look up to you as a role model.
Well, I don't know if I fit the bill of a role model for an entrepreneur.
No, we all look up to you.
I have failed a couple of times as well. And the thing is that I think it was from early days when, just when I moved out of college, and generally I like to do things out of the box. And luckily I had a couple of my friends who had some ideas we thought we could be doing. So probably my first foray was into geographical information systems, where we did what you call routing now, or the Google Maps, which you're so profusely using now. We had made something for the city way back then for Bengaluru, for navigation for city way back then. Then of course Google came, and we all just we were all left on the wayside. So I mean, there are a lot of things that ideas that we have.
Did you ask for protection policy that time?
Well, I wasn't so articulate that time, or I did not understand. I mean, the ecosystem also was not there, right? The startup ecosystem. I'm talking about 15 years back.
Wow.
16 years back rather, and there was no ecosystem that would support startups. And at that time, ITES was the bigger thing, you know.
Yes.
So working in a BPO was the coolest job you could think of.
Yeah.
So of course, then I moved on to creative side. So I used to work for a European design firm, wherein I was a graphic designer there. Then I went on to become a team lead, and I started from a team lead. Instead of me sitting and designing the things, my bosses thought that maybe you need to push him a little more, and they made me get into business development, which is not what I was cut out for.
Oh, you've done everything.
Yeah, so maybe they were cash strapped, I don't know. So they made me multiplex. So I had to start talking to clients as well, which is not really what I used to like doing, because I would like to design. So then post that, I was fortunate to work with some of the best minds in academia, wherein I was roped into start India's first knowledge processing, outsourcing, this thing. So we used to do a title servicing, you know, something that the First Serve or I mean, there are a couple of First American, I think, is something that they do. So we used to work for New York's second biggest titling company. So I was the one who set the process for them. Again, my chairman thought that maybe he's doing fairly decent here, so let me send him to London for some time, and they asked me to set up their European office there. So I had that exposure also. Now currently I sort of dabble between animation and e-commerce. We have something, my friends and me also conceptualized probably India's first mobile gift voucher, which a lot of people don't know.
When was that?
Say 6 years back.
So now I know why you are so good to startups. And why do you respond to mails? Because you know the different, you've been one.
Yes, I've been one. It is difficult. So even now when I try to run my animation studio, I know it's difficult, because that's also a startup again. And if I am able to ensure that people don't repeat my mistakes, that itself is a good thing.
Yeah.
So like you rightly said, I've traveled that journey of an entrepreneur, of trying to be an entrepreneur. And some have succeeded, some have failed, but I've learned a lot.
So I'm sorry for my presumption here, but I thought everything would have been a silver spoon for you. But you have done your fair bit of
No,
rigor.
I don't understand this concept of silver spoon, because of course there is no denying that there is a certain edge that I might have, but which everybody has if you are born into a political family or a family of business or an entrepreneurial family.
Or an academician's family.
Yes, whatever. So the problem is जब अभिनेता का बेटा अभिनेता बन सकता है तो नेता का बेटा नेता नहीं बन सकता. That is a way. Doctor's son can become a doctor.
Yeah.
An engineer's son can become an engineer. But if there is a politician's son who wants to be a politician, fingers are raised. But the thing is that it's a democracy, So until and unless you perform, you cannot.
Yes.
So it is just not going to be that, okay, he's X and Y, Z son. There are and that's why we need to vote for him. There are so many failures, okay? There are so many iconic leaders, iconic business tycoons whose children have not done well.
Yes.
But that is not the count that they say. They say everything is a family if you've done. So the silver spoon might help you to probably take a little bit of baby steps, but you need to learn how to walk, you need to learn how to run. Nobody else can do that for you.
That whatever I have encountered and seen you are very approachable, very responsive. Digitally also, you are one of the very few people, politicians, I would say, who responds, 24/7, if I may say so, on emails and everywhere. What makes you so approachable? What makes you so humble? And is it your age?
Well, no, I don't think age has to do anything with it. See, out of sight is out of mind, firstly, whether it's in any field you take that. And moreover, when you have such a big responsibility, what people do not realize that is when they elect you, you're responsible for more than 400,000 lives, 4 lakh people, population of my constituency, 4 to 5 lakh people. I'm responsible for them. I decide the fate of the constituency for the next 5 years, whether I want to take up development works, whether I give a conducive environment in my constituency, a progressive environment in my constituency. It's up to me. And in order to do that, I have to listen. I have to be accessible. Because people have problems right from, let's say, their घर में पानी नहीं आ रहा तो मुझको फ़ोन आता है, घर के सामने की नाली साफ़ नहीं है तो मुझको बुलाते हैं. So police station cases come. At the same time, we have to ensure that the policies are being implemented, schemes are being implemented. So the idea why I like to be approachable or why I am so accessible is because I'm willing to learn. I like to learn, and it's a constant process, especially whether it's in business or politics. The day you stop learning, it's your last day.
We'd love to hear your views about your father and your learnings from your father. He's such an illustrious personality. What has it been growing up?
He is a living legend, only for the fact that nobody has won as many elections as him. But quite surprisingly, we don't discuss much politics.
At home?
I don't know. He's never told me that, why don't you go to this department and see this work? Or why don't you take up this policy? Or why don't you implement this scheme better? Or anything. He's never advised me, or he's never told me to contest the election also.
So dinner table conversation is not about politics?
No. I hardly, it's monosyllables when I speak with him. So I just listen if there's anything. So even now, after I'm the minister, he doesn't really interfere in my work, or he doesn't tell me that this needs to be done. And I'm the MLA and he's the MP. So in fact, he writes to me sometimes if works have not taken up in my constituency, or they're going in slow progress. He writes to me saying that, look, this MP lad work that has been taken up by you, it's like delayed by 6 months. One thing which I've learned from him is that if you are progressive, if you do development works, dispassionately and being impartial, you're going to get elected. Irrespective of what people think about you. They might not like you personally, but they're going to say, not bad, he's progressive. He's doing good for the constituency. His mentality is development oriented. He's got a...
people can see through it.
Yes. So people, and even he doesn't lie, So that's, these are two things that I've learned from him.
So you learned straightforwardness from him?
I guess so. I think it's genetically imbibed by him, because even he doesn't mince his words. And people mistake it for arrogance sometimes.
We've seen you in the last months, if I may say so, you're doing so much for startups. Tell us, I always see, if I tell you about some other states, then you'll have some bigger numbers about what you're doing in Karnataka. Please tell us what has happened since you took over.
When I took over, we had this, my team and me. Firstly, I should really thank my team, because I have a very good set of officers who are with me. So the team is very solid, rock solid. And when we had a meeting, like we sort of realized that IT and ITES has sort of matured in Bengaluru and in the state. And slowly they moved to tier 2 towns as well, the ITES part of it. And we thought that we should be more aggressive in various other sectors as well, from a technology perspective. And so, and of course, the startup is a buzzword. So we thought we should we should give an adrenaline shot to the ecosystem.
Yes.
So the only way to do that was trying to ensure that we have some kind of a inclusive policy. So we had a policy in place a year back, and which was India's first multi-sector policy. So we ensured that the policy comes in its full force. So when we did that, a lot of people started coming and talking to the government, because people think the government is not approachable.
Yeah.
So I suggested to the team that let's try and boost the ecosystem. Let's come up with a startup booster kit. So when the startups really want to use incubation facilities, instrumentation facilities, or they look for mentor, or they want accounting help, they need patenting help, or idea validation, which is the most important thing. They have to knock on the doors of these bigger organizations like FICCI, NASSCOM, and they have their own they have their limitations. So what I suggested was that let's open up this system. So even if you are registered in with the government from Bidar, from Hubli, from Mysuru, Mangaluru, doesn't matter. We will give you this entire ambit of services for you.
Yeah.
So we are giving them subsidized internet data plans. We are opening up testing tools for them. So let's say somebody wants to test on IBM's Watson. So IBM has agreed to open it up on cloud for them. Microsoft is our partner. Amazon Web Services, cloud services we are giving. And we are giving accounting help. We are giving them legal help. We are allowing them to access mentors.
You also have funds, no?
Yes, I'm coming to that. So
that's the exciting part.
Yeah, so that's the best part. And see, the two important things what we are doing there is that what are the two most important things that an innovator looks for? One is the first and most basic thing is whether his idea is good. So how do I ensure that his idea is validated?
Yes.
So right now I'm allowing that to happen, idea validation. So I'm having something called India's first startup open house. So wherein 25, 35 startups come to me every month on one day, sit across the table, and they have multiple demands, Where somebody asks for policy change, somebody asks for rule change, or can you call up the agriculture university and ask the dean to speak, or sir, I have no access to this. Let's say the bigger industrialists, I need access to them. I need funds. So all these things. So we try to sit and sort things out then and there itself.
So you do this every month?
Every month. So we have done it thrice already.
Wow.
In the last 3 months we have done it.
You do it here in your office?
We do it in different places. First time we did it in our Center of Excellence. Then we moved to NASSCOM. Then we are going to CMTI.
Oh.
So the idea is to have vertical specific
meetups
of this thing. So the idea validation. So people are coming up to me and saying like, sir, we have this idea. I don't know where to test it. So if you want to, so we allow them to test within the government itself. So startups now have access to the government.
Yes,
so they're using. I'm experimenting them in a couple of PHCs in my constituency. And I have 8 startups directly working with the Department of Tourism, which is the other hat I don.
Yes. You did something interesting in the tourism.
Yeah, so like you said, the most interesting part was the funding. So idea validation is something that I'm giving. Funding. So I have India's first multi-sector fund of 400 crores, okay, where it gives startups immense opportunities to work with us.
The 400 crore fund is in place?
Almost in place.
Wow.
So, but what I'm doing is also I'm breaking that up, So example, tourism. You asked what did I do in tourism? When my tourism team sat together, we decided to see that let us try and see what are the new technologies that are available to ensure the tourism can,
Yes.
the department can use that, or a traveler can use that.
That was first time something like that I had
Yes,
seen. in last
it's the
8
first time
years.
in India. So there
Yeah.
a lot of the advantage of having a creative person as a politician is you think out of the box.
Did your team suddenly say like, hey, what's this? This is something new.
Well, I don't know. You have to check with them, but at least to me, they have been kind enough, and
Yeah.
they have been cooperating with everything.
Because I've never read, at least in the last 8 years, something like that. It was
No,
very
it's not happened.
novel.
So what we did is, I gave a call out for 3 weeks. I released advertising saying, call out to all the startups. If you have any new technology that you think the Department of Tourism can use or a traveler can use, please come up to us. And I had to close the entries in 2 weeks' time. It was for 3 weeks. In 10 days, 2 weeks, I had to shut it down.
Why?
I started getting too many.
Oh.
I got 127 in 10 days.
Wow.
127 startups directly accessing the government. This is unheard of.
Wow.
And 127 people gave presentations to a set of 3 people. So we made 3 groups of 3 people within the department and 1 expert from the industry stakeholder. And they presented it, out of which 51 were narrowed down, which were further curated to 12. And 12 startups gave a presentation to the Department of Tourism, the Ministry of Tourism, and the Department of IT, plus stakeholders of the tourism, so that it's not only the government's perspective.
Yeah.
So we had the CEO of Holiday IQ, Mr. Hari Nair. Then we had the EasyGo CEO also on board.
So you got the corporates
yeah,
also.
we got the corporates also, so that we know what we can, what to expect.
Yeah.
And the result was overwhelming. 8 companies got funded up to 2 crores.
Oh, they got funded.
Yes, they got
Wow.
funded, and they're working with us.
Wow.
They're working with the department, with the government right now, trying to disrupt tourism, this thing. And some of the results, we are creating new sectors. There was this startup called Our Hostels.
Huh.
Okay, hostels is not a sector that tourism looks at all.
Yeah.
If I'm successful in trying to implement his idea of creating this new vertical in tourism, so there is the 5-star, 2-star, 3-star lodging and everything, a hostel, which I can club with my ecotourism,
Yes.
which I can club with the trekkers, which I can club with the boulders, this thing,
Yeah.
for a cheaper accommodation, a more activity-based accommodation. I am creating a new vertical.
That's true.
And there was one company which was an aggregator for aggregators.
Wow.
So aggregator for Make My Trip, aggregator for Clear Trip, and that was validated by the stakeholders saying, sir, I think we should fund them. I think they're called Trip Diary or something. And there is this other company called Flipkart who are doing the VR experience for us. There's one more gentleman, one more startup called Pinakin who are doing the audio guide for us, which is already in place in Cubbon Circuit right now. We are testing it right now. So in less than 2.5 months, they are working with the government. What does a startup want?
Amazing.
It is a validation of their idea. They can go outside and say, look, government of Karnataka is employing us. Why don't you try us? We are good. So these are the things that which the startups dream of doing, and we are just facilitating these things.
What do you see the role of the government? Do you see it getting more active as a participant, as an enabler, as one of the partners? What do you see it as?
I think the government should act as the biggest enablers rather than getting into something that it's not really their cup of tea. I mean, we should not get into the business of doing business. We should facilitate, or we should have people who will back that up.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we are trying to do, and it's just not for startups. So if you were present at the Bengaluru IT.biz, which happened recently, we have taken the next big step. We are moving away from ITES to defining the next. The theme of the event was define the next. So what do we do? Because when Bengaluru started becoming the IT hub 20 years back or 25 years back, it was completely back office operations.
Yes.
Now we are no more services. We want to become the knowledge capital.
Yes.
We want to become the skill capital. So that's why, and technology was limited to back office operations before. So if you were working for HP, actually you were working only for a back office of
Yes.
HP, not for R&D. So now we have R&D centers here. We are I think the most preferred destination for any MNC to have their R&D centers here. So all the top Fortune 100 companies have their R&D center because we have the knowledge, we have the skill
Yes.
base,
Yes.
skill this thing. So now we are defining the next. So whether it's in cyber security, it's in Internet of Things, whether it is in aerospace, agriculture. So technology is now in every sector.
Yes.
So how do I become the thought leader in all these things? How does my government facilitate all these things? Is what my next big challenge will be.
Wow. You know, this doesn't fall under your constituency, but this question everyone must be asking you. All this is happening, but what's happening to the infrastructure of Bengaluru?
That's something that I get every time, and that's not something that I'm trying to wriggle out of. Infrastructure is a cause of concern for any growing city.
Yeah.
Any growing city. I'm talking about, be it New York, London, Paris, Delhi,
Beijing.
Mumbai, or Beijing, anything. Okay, every city has its set of problems. That having been said, I'm not trying to wash my hands away. The problem is that the cities are growing faster than we are able to cope up. Then the governments are able to cope up. Any government for that matter. So, but
Bengaluru?
no, see, we are committed to the growth of Bengaluru, and this is the first time any chief minister has given 8,000 crores for the infrastructure of the city alone. Oh. And once the Bengaluru Metro, the north-south corridor comes in, I think most of the congestion part at least will ease out. And of course, you see the Bengaluru itself is growing into different smaller hubs. So the Devanhalli hub is growing by itself. The Whitefield hub and the Electronic City hub is growing by itself. So I think before it used to be only North Bangalore or South Bangalore. Now we have a multiple growth areas. So I mean, every city has this problem, but somehow everything comes back to Bengaluru. And we are glad that the spotlight is on us.
I think the spotlight is also on you because you have the most intelligent people in your city.
No,
all
so
the startups are here.
like I said, I'm not trying to wash away my hands from this thing. We are trying our bit, and of course, it is becoming difficult only because that we are growing faster than we are able to this thing, and that is again because of so much of quality human resource we have. People are coming here. Okay, we are true cosmopolitan in nature. We have people from all over India, all over the world coming here and staying. So we are growing faster than we can.
Yes, I agree. I'm also from outside here. Love the city. So, you know, my question, one is that so much of enthusiasm, energy, positivity, you're driving so many changes. What keeps you very excited? What keeps you, what's your big dream? What's like the chase for you?
I mean, I don't think there's a chase of anything. I think it's a responsibility that we have been given, and because of the virtue, the virtue of the chair, or because of the position that I am in, like I said earlier, as a legislator, I'm responsible for so many people. I'm responsible for my constituency. You know, probably what drives me is that the fact that I've been given so much of responsibility to change a life. You know, I'm actually able to do that. So if I'm sitting on a responsible chair, and by the virtue of the chair, I'm drawing up policies for people that can actually enable them. That is the biggest motivation. You know, the ability to change lives. It's the responsibility that drives me, I guess.
Your one big dream, what would that be? Like dream?
Well, I don't know. It's not like I generally don't dream much about it.
Or you can say you're living your dream every day?
I prefer to be more practical and take it a step every day by this thing. But of course, I mean, like I said earlier, if I'm able to change lives, I mean, that's the biggest thing that you could achieve as whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an innovator, whether you're in business or whether you're in politics. The ability to do that itself, I think, is the biggest thing you could do. Even if I'm able to enable one sector, one vertical, one person, I think that you have done your bit.
I'm going to ask you a few words. You have to give me one-line answer. What do you think? Failure?
Failure is a part of a learning curve, so it should be accepted.
What do you think of money?
Not much if you have the ability.
Success?
Part of failure.
Responsibility?
Comes with the job. And that is something that you really need to do well if you want to be successful.
Relationships?
Important, very important, because at the end of the day, all this is temporary. Your fortune, your fame, everything is temporary. So relationships are the only things that is going to keep you afloat.
Purpose?
It is needed because you need to know which direction to head to. So the purpose is very important.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I love this man, admire, respect, look up to. And so do you, and I'm sure so does everyone in this country and across the world. And especially in the last 2-3 years, I'm sure everyone in the startup, if you ask any startup and entrepreneur, who do they want as a partner, as an investor, then everyone would say one name, and that is Mr. Ratan Tata. How come you have so much of energy, so much of passion, and all the time we see you working, doing so much? How do you do this?
I think mainly it's because I was a sports person, though I don't look like that now.